Hey, John here, DV in the forums, and welcome to episode 11 of Meet the Sportsracers, an opportunity to get to know the folks who populate the forums over at zayfrank.com just a little bit better. And hey, how about that new intro, huh? That was provided to us courtesy of someone whose work I'm sure you've probably become familiar with and who is coincidentally today's featured guest to help us kick off the second round of Sportsracer interviews. Described by Zay Frank as the wonderful, the fabulous, the amazing, talented, and grand-fabultastic Lee Hall, the artist who animates the dream sequences for a show. He is known in the forums as InvisibleMan, and I'm excited to have you meet him in this first half of a two-part interview. And if you're new to this series and want to catch up with earlier episodes, you can check out this YouTube playlist going all the way back to episode 1. And of course, if you're watching on a mobile device or in a YouTube browser that doesn't support embedded links, you can find the links in the video description along with more information about this project. So read up, jump on board, and hopefully we'll see you around in the forums. Okay, episode 11, let's go. Hi, John here, DV on the forums, and I'm excited to be here today to interview another sports racer for our interview series. I'm here today with Lee Hall from Lost Marble Media, and most of our sports racers are probably most familiar with Lee through his work in animating the dream sequences on the end of Zay Frank's videos, and also he's also very active in the forums as InvisibleMan. And today Lee is actually coming before us to make himself a little bit less invisible. And Lee, I thank you for being here today. How you doing?
Hey, not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing very well. You getting sleep?
No. A couple hours a night and we're good.
You made a post and mentioned in the forums. Do you want to go ahead and tell everybody why that is?
Yeah, I have a 3-week-old son now. He's called Elijah, and he keeps me awake most nights and poops a lot. That's pretty much his life. He poops, he eats, he sleeps.
Well, then so far it sounds like everything is working the way that it's supposed to. So,
yeah.
And hopefully you get a little more sleep and rest as the years progress, but don't count on it.
It's not likely.
Your accent kind of gives away a little bit about where you're calling in from, so tell us about where you are.
I'm in the northeast of England. I'm in a little place, well, near Durham. Most people haven't heard of it, so near Newcastle. Some people have heard of Newcastle. Closer to Scotland than London.
Yeah, it's way north up there, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty far up.
You actually have a bit of a history in the sports racer community, where right now maybe the current active community is familiar through the dream animations, but you've been around, so you built up some relationships over the years, having been a sports racer from way back in the beginning, I assume, yeah?
Yeah, right near the beginning, when Zay was back on a website called rever.com.
Okay.
And I think it was about 4 shows in that I found him.
I see.
Something like that.
Were you active in the org at that time?
I wasn't active at first at all, if I'm honest. The first few episodes I saw, I was posting a show up myself at the time, and I was making money off this rever.com. And on the front page, Zay kept appearing as one of the top guys with the most views. And eventually I decided to watch one of his shows. And I'll be honest, I was just kind of watching it almost to check out what other people were doing, to see if I could learn from him and better myself. And then I got hooked.
I see.
And just watched it religiously every day. It was what I woke up with, my coffee and the Zay Frank show. So, but I wasn't really active. I just kind of watched it.
Tell me about the nature of the show you had at that time.
It was stupid, basically. It was stupid clips with weird little projects attached to them, like Picture Dead Place, which is still kind of going. It never actually stopped, and other people took it over, and I didn't even realize. So I had little bits of projects and strange little things going, and it was basically a show about nothing.
Which basically is about 85% of the internet overall.
But it's vanished from the internet altogether.
Oh, really?
I made sure I wiped every little part of it away because it had the same name as my business name. So I didn't want clients to tie it all in, so it's gone.
Eradicate the evidence, basically. Get rid of it.
So basically, yeah, something like that. It still crops up now and then, and I find little snippets of it here and there. And
you have to go squash it. You got to stamp it out.
Yeah. Get rid of it.
That's funny. Now, you kind of jumped on board, really getting involved once this new series of a show kicked off. What would you say is your sense of the sports racer community today, as opposed to your experience of how things had grown back in its earlier era?
I don't know if I'm more detached now, because as much as I didn't do a lot, I was a lot more involved in at least the forums back with the first one.
Yeah.
And now I think I'm maybe a little bit more detached, but it feels to me like the old crew is a lot more active than the new viewers.
Yeah.
So it felt like a lot more was going on. I know personally I've struggled a lot more now to get people involved in a project than I used to.
Yeah.
Now you get 4 or 5 responses. Back then you used to get 30, 40, 50 responses or more. So, but it's building. That's the thing, is it's still in its early days, really.
Yeah, that's true.
And Zay's letting it grow organically as well. He's not really pimping it out a lot. He's just letting it roll and see where it goes.
What I've seen, and I really have no way of peeking behind to get the metrics, but it does kind of look as if, based on what you're saying, there's definitely a transitional component of people who come in and maybe stay for a short time and they move on and you never see them again. Then there's one very cohesive core that continues to grow, but of people that you see fairly often being very active and posting, and of course you're one of those as well.
Yeah, it's kind of moved though. There's a lot more goes on in the comments on YouTube than there are on his site.
Yeah, maybe a lot of people who follow him or see him through YouTube itself, but never even take that step into exploring the environment behind it.
Well, I know that's definitely true, because I get a lot of messages from people saying, "How do I submit the dreams? Where do I do that?"
Really?
What's this all, yeah, what's all this about? They watch it every single episode, but they have no idea what's behind it. They've never even visited this site. It's just basically we subscribe on YouTube and that's about it.
Right.
So most people have no idea there's a community behind it.
I mean, it's one of the complications, I guess, as compared to maybe the earlier era. And I think we talked about it in an earlier interview with one of the interviewees about how the explosion of social media has made all this different variant forms of, I don't want to say redundant, but different forms of access that, most of which have their own forms of subscription.
Yeah.
And so while you're in the forums, of course, you can go up there and you can look at the episodes, but a lot of folks, myself included, follow Zay on Twitter, and I also look at the YouTube thing, and I even have the podcast feed. I would guess that probably a lot of folks just in all these different areas are generally unaware of the others, or maybe habitually just don't, pull up the lid and look underneath. So
yeah, I think one of the things is, though, the promo that Zay did was weird, for lack of a better word. I remember the first episode went up, and at one point he realized he hadn't announced this. And a couple of days had went by, and I don't think he got a ton of views. And I remember something popping up on Twitter like, "Forgot to mention, but I started the show." And then all of a sudden the views go up. And I think in a lot of ways, I don't know if he takes it for granted that people already know, or that he just, imagines people will go look further into it. But I don't really hear very much or see very many links to the forums or talking about the community and then addressing what that community is. It'll say, "We've got a question from," and then it doesn't say from zayfrank.com/whatever.
Right, yeah, right.
So I think a lot of that is lacking. But then again, at the same time, sometimes that creates intrigue and people go out and find out a lot more. So you get more of a core base that way, I guess.
Well, that's true. It's almost to the point where you'll find it if you go looking for it.
Yeah.
And then when you do, then it becomes worth it. But it doesn't become. It's not really engineered for incidental discovery.
Yeah, and then there's the whole "are the new viewers gone yet?" thing. So
some people have gotten offended by that.
Yeah, I loved it.
I think it's great. Getting back to the kickoff of the show, or a show, this new series. I'm sorry, people get confused. I do too. Is now your involvement with it, was that starting up prior to the show? Had you made arrangements with Zay about how that was going to lead into being part of that at that point?
Yeah, I can't remember why. I've spoke to Zay very, very briefly through the years, just over email.
Yeah.
And I think I was looking to branch out into different projects. I think I was bored, actually, client work was just driving me mental. It was getting me to the point where I was just getting up every day and dreading work and absolutely love animating. And I thought I need to do something a bit more fun. I talked to people like Tom Green, a wrestler called Rob Van Dam, and some other people about doing side work for them. And I thought I would much rather work for Zay for free than work for them for money.
Yeah.
Much more interesting projects. And I approached him and just said, I would like to do some work with you. And I think he thought I meant for, part of the fee that he got from Kickstarter. But
right.
I kind of wanted to work for free and see what we could do. And I'd initially said to him, let's do an animated show. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ricky Gervais show.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just basically them as cartoons.
Right.
Sitting there and talking. So I thought we could do that with Zay. And so I did the first advert that he did, I think for Kickstarter. I did a version of that but animated. And just sent that to him and said, look, I'm thinking about something on these lines. And then he was talking backwards and forwards with me. And eventually he said, let's chat. I don't think we ever actually did get to chat, all like us originally when we were trying to get this interview.
Right.
We were going to Skype and it never happened. And he just sent me an email. And it was his idea to do the dreams. He'd said, instead of doing an animated show here and there, let's do a dream. And he wanted to do one every month. But for me to keep saying I need to do something weird at least once a week. Right. So we do them a lot more regularly. But it was his idea, but I contacted him first. And it was just an email. He's very easy to contact.
Yeah.
Say Frank.
Yeah, and he's pretty responsive too. Yeah.
Yeah. He goes, yeah.
Well, okay, so you've mentioned several times using the word weird in terms of the stuff that you're really wanting to do. And that's also some of the stuff that we talked about prior to starting this interview. Now, this seems to be like almost not an urgency, but almost as a contrast to your client work. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you do with your clients. I mean, what encompasses your client work?
Well, client work is all I basically do in a nutshell is create commercials for the web. Some of it goes on TV, although I've never seen it because it airs in the States. And it's just short clips, usually 30 seconds to 3 minutes. And it's for I can't mention anything in particular because the client sees this video, but some of them are pretty dreary things. It's literally, actually, the one I can mention is shoe hangers. I had to do 3 minutes of entertaining video on shoe hangers, which is pretty difficult to do.
Sure, yeah.
So with the urgency comes in where I have to be able to get up and create something. In order to do that, I needed something weird to go alongside it, to contrast it, to sort of get creative juices going. So that's where the urgency comes from with that. A bit of a contrast from client work.
Sure, absolutely. Well, it totally sounds like it. And in part of that contrast, then you guys jumped into dreams. When Zay put out the call for that mission for folks to submit their dreams, you probably started getting an avalanche of content that you had to weed through and figure out what you felt about what you were hearing.
Had to be pretty selective with the ones we used. The thing is, there's like a billion of them up on the Zay Frank website. There's loads and loads of submissions there. But before that actually went up, people were sending them in. And I was getting zip folders just full of these dreams nonstop, one after the other. Some of them extremely disturbing. The worst thing I did was, as I thought, I actually want to know what I'm animating here. So I had somebody in mental health analyze these dreams and tell me what they're actually about.
Oh, dear.
And at that point, I was finding that I couldn't actually use any of them. They were all quite demented. And so I ended up just sort of ignorance is bliss, just going ahead and just letting them out. But I listened to every single one of them, which is absurd because there was a lot of them. Almost daily, I'll go through about 5, 6, maybe 10 of them, and just pick them. I think I have about 200 saved that I want to work through.
It's quite a load to work through.
But I absolutely love them. I do love them. The thing is, it's a highlight to sit down and listen to, I don't know, maybe 30 people's dreams and then pick a really cool one out of them.
Yeah. Well,
everybody gets to do that.
So you only have the earlier ones analyzed by someone, and not the ones that were posted after the startup, because
1 or 2.
That gives me a little bit of concern about the one that I posted.
All right.
Hopefully that will just stay where that is. Do what?
I'll have to find that one.
Oh.
I will search it out and have it analyzed.
No. Yeah, granted, I can say that was a dream that I had when I was very, very young. So many years have gone by, and I no longer feel the urgency to what's the word? Exercise a type of violence on small animals. It wasn't even a small animal. It was a dream where I referenced like a 4-foot hamster, and I was out hunting them with a 6-foot musket. I'll just leave that one lay, but I always look forward to seeing what you've put together.